I'm going to take some notes on different types of equations that we've been working with, and these should be going into your notes notebook. So the first thing is if we have an equation that's in standard form, which would be ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. This gives us some information. So information that we can get from this graph would be our y-intercept. And in this case, would our y-intercept happens when x is 0. So if we would plug 0 into our equation, the y-intercept would be c. So the information is y-intercept, which is c. To solve this, one method we could use is factoring. And that's only if it works, if we can find things that multiply to the last number and add to the middle number. The second thing we're going to learn about in a later lesson is going to be the quadratic formula, but just so you don't have to go back in and write it in. So we have two different ways that we would solve them if they're in standard form. And if we can factor them, we do more with those. But that leads us to our second type of equation, which would be in factored form. So this would be like x plus 3, x minus 5. We'd want it, again, still to equal 0. And if we're putting this in factored form, this gives us, so I should say information, is going to be the x-intercepts, which are also called the roots or solutions. They're all kind of called the same thing. We would solve using zero product property. So in this case, that's where we're going to do x plus 3 equals 0 and x minus 5 equals 0. And then we would solve those. So that it gives us different information from when it's written in standard form, although we can go from factored form to standard form. That just gives us lots of different pieces that we can have. Our last form is going to be the vertex form. And vertex form would be something like x minus 3 squared equals 10. And in vertex form, it actually gives us the vertex of the graph, which is a little bit harder to see, but we'll put it on here, and we will be working with that later. So it gives us the vertex, which we have, again, we haven't really used that too much, but it gives us some information. And we're going to solve using the square root property. Square root method, not property. And that's where we're going to take the square root of both sides. And then we're going to divide it into two parts. So x minus 3 equals whatever the square root of 10 is, and x minus 3 equals negative square root of 10. So I take the square root of 10, multiply it by negative 1. And then I would finish solving by adding 3 to both sides. And let me just figure out the square root of 10 on this one. Square root of 10 is 3.2, so that x would equal 6.2. And then on this other one, we'd have negative 3.2 and add 3 to that. So this would just be a negative 0.2 to get my two solutions. So all the different forms that we can be looking at in quadratics, different information that they give us, and then how we can apply that information.